Now that we know how to perform operations on certain elements in a source code, such as editing, deletion, selection, and yanking, in this lesson let's take a look at the keyboard shortcuts that will allow us to jump between several elements in the source code. And to do so, I'm going to add this move table in the configuration, and by using this enabled option set to true, we are enabling all those movements. So let's start with the first table with keyboard shortcuts. Go to next, start. The following mapping is going to allow us to jump to the beginning of the next elements. For example, to the beginning of next functions, classes, blocks, loops, parameters, and so on. As you can see, each such mapping includes closing square bracket, and so that in order to jump to the next function, I'm going to press closing square bracket F. And in the same way, we're gonna be able to jump to the beginning of each type of element. To jump to the beginning of the next class, I'm gonna press closing square bracket C. To jump to the beginning of the next for loop, I'm gonna press closing square bracket L, and so on. Let's try some of those keys in action. So in order to jump to the beginning of the next function, I'm going to use closing square bracket F. As you can see, we are jumping to the beginning of next functions. Now I'm gonna add a couple more classes in this file to demonstrate the next shortcut, which will be allowing us to jump to the next class definition, specifically to the beginning of each next class. To do so, I'm gonna use closing square bracket C, or if we'd like to move in the opposite direction, we can use opening square bracket C. All those forward movements also have opposite direction movements, but in these mappings, instead of using closing square bracket, we're gonna use opening square bracket, and all other keys are the same. So in order to jump to the beginning of the previous class, I'm going to use opening square bracket C. Alright, one more time, I'm going to press closing square brackets F to jump to the beginning of the next function definition, or to move in the opposite direction, I'm going to press opening square bracket F, and this way I'll be moving to the beginning of the previous functions. And to jump to the beginning of the previous class, I'm gonna use opening square bracket C. Next one, to quickly jump between if statements, I will use opening or closing square brackets I. Then to jump between for loops, let me add a couple of for statements at the bottom of this file. And now to quickly jump between those for loops, I'm going to use closing or opening square brackets L. As you can see, we are moving around for loop statements. Then to jump between function or method calls, we can use opening or closing square brackets M. To jump around several blocks, in other words, those elements that start with opening curly brace and end with closing curly brace, we can use opening square bracket or closing square bracket B. And finally, in order to jump around function parameters, we can use opening or closing square bracket A, and we are moving between these function parameters. Moving on to the movement between comments, and for that I'm going to use opening and closing square brackets /. And in order to navigate between statements, I'm gonna press opening square bracket or closing square bracket S. Then we also have an option to move between assignment statements. Let's use opening or closing square bracket equals sign to move between assignment statements, and to navigate between return statements, I'm going to use opening or closing square bracket R. Let's go back to the configuration file. In here we can also see some mappings that let us move not to the beginning of the previous or next element, but also to the end of the next or previous elements. And the only difference in here would be that we are using capital letters. So in order to go to the end of the next function, we'll have to press closing square bracket capital F. To go to the end of the next class, we'll press closing square bracket capital C, and so on. or in order to move in the opposite direction to the end of the previous elements, we're going to use opening square brackets and different capital letters that are used in these mappings. So let me demonstrate movements between functions in this way. I'm going to jump to the end of the previous function or next function. To do so, I'm gonna use opening or closing square bracket, capital F. Let's try it out with class definitions. So to jump to the end of the next class, I'm gonna press closing square bracket, capital C. And to move to the end of the previous class, I'm gonna use opening square bracket, capital C. And this is how we can quickly navigate between several elements in a source code with the help of Treesitter Text Objects plugin.